Hey, all. So good to see everybody for our 2024 planning party. So we're going to get this party started. We had a little chit chat before we officially got rolling. Um, and a lot of us, had some ups and downs or bumps or lumps in 2023. Some of us did have a good year. Some of us had a mixed year. So we're just going to talk about how this is going to go. What are we going to do for this coming year? How are we going to make it better, stronger, faster? How are we going to rebuild it? So I am Sonia. My name is Sonia Simone. Most of you know me pretty well. Um, I am a content marketer. I'm a writer. I'm a business coach. I'm a copywriter. And my career has mainly been about putting words together to help do business. One of my favorite job titles was salesman once, after seeing some web copy I'd done on a new project. He said, "You're a really good word put togetherer." So word put togetherer is kind of my jam. But also I'm a very like stereotypical kind of creative, flaky, woo-woo kind of person in a lot of ways. And to word whisper, oh, I like that, Mike. And to balance that, I'm very interested in strategy. I'm very interested in practical solutions focus so that we can take our wonderful, joyful creativity and actually, get some good things to happen. So let's talk about it. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about what it is, some common things that make us struggle with setting goals. We all have the stereotype, we set goals January 1st. By January 8th, they're totally out the window. I think that's a little overstated, but we are going to talk about some of why we don't do the things we intend to do. I'm going to share some tools for success. So, some really tried and true proven mechanisms that will help you do more of what you want to do. I'm going to talk about, what we're calling tools for failure or recipes for failure. So, things people think work that don't work well that I would recommend you avoid. We're going to have a short exercise. It's a self gratitude exercise. I find it really grounding and really centering, and it just helps us kind of feel good and get into the right headspace. There will be a break, 5 minute break. Well, usually a little over 5 minutes. And then after the break, we're going to come back. We're going to build the map for 2024. So we're really going to look at what do you want? What's the path to get there? What are the milestones? And how are you going to structure that so you get it done? And then finally, we're going to wrap up. If you have a website that you're embarrassed to send clients to, or you just don't feel good about sending people to, we'll talk about a program that I have that might be able to help you move through that, in the first month or two of the year. So let's get it going. So do grab something to write with just for the exercises. Again, we will have like a Google Notes class notes. So anytime you see like a bunch of words on the screen, you're going to get that in a Google Doc. So you don't have to frantically write. All right. So I want to start off with why we think we struggle with goals. Like why we think we're not good at setting goals, and we're not good at following through with goals, and we're not good at, we know what our priority is and then we don't do it. So what we think it is, there's a constellation of reasons, but things that come up a lot are I have imposter syndrome. I self-sabotage. I'm just lazy. I'm just like not very good at adulting, all these things. And these are things that do exist. Self-sabotage is not fake. I'm not saying it's fake. I'm not saying imposter syndrome is fake, although it should more properly, according to the women who coined the phrase, it should more properly be called imposter experience, because it's not a syndrome. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It's just something that happens in your head where sometimes you look around and say, wait, should I even be here? Like, am I qualified to be doing what I'm doing? But these are not the really common ones. And I had the great fortune the other day of running across somebody on Threads, on the social platform. Because Threads does not let us save posts, I lost who it was. So if anybody knows who this is, please let me know, because I would love to give them credit. But this person identified that when you are like you know what you want to do, you've got your list, but you're still not doing it, what gets in the way? And I thought these were very, very insightful. The three of the most common are exhaustion, distraction, and fear. So we're going to take a couple of minutes and we're going to talk about this, the many forms these take, and then some tools we can use to kind of dismantle them, make them less powerful so we can move forward. So the first one is just flat out exhaustion. You're just tired. And I don't think we give this nearly enough awareness, is that sometimes we don't do something because we are just that drained. This takes a lot of forms. It can just be you're just physically tired. You're just not getting enough physical rest. We are, the Americans in the room, you all know we are chronically sleep deprived. It is, it is really a thing. But there are other things too. I mean, a lot of us are very emotionally tired. We have compassion fatigue. There's so many difficult, painful things. There's something called moral injury where you have to witness something that really hits you on a deep values level. You have to witness something terrible. And there's a lot of that going around with, wars and pandemics and lots of things. Injustice. 2023 was kind of a dumpster fire for a lot of people. And so we're still tired. Just a background anxiety. It's much more expensive everywhere in the world. And that means that we've all mostly got some level of economic anxiety. So a lot of things are making us tired. And when you are just super tired, it is hard to get things done. And that is not an excuse. That is just a valid thing that happens. So let's talk about some ways we can acknowledge that we are tired and make some progress or even excellent progress while acknowledging that we're really, really exhausted and tired. So the best is really to try and get more rest. This can be very much easier said than done. The only thing I would say is give yourself permission to really prioritize it to the extent you can. It's really not easy to rest when you're anxious. They're kind of opposites. It's not always possible to get more rest, but as much rest as you can claim for yourself, do. If you don't necessarily sleep well, just being calm and quiet and relaxing is helpful. It is beneficial. There are some sources out there that say, oh, if you don't get X amount of sleep, then it's just worthless. And that's not, I've looked into this quite a bit. I don't believe that that is well supported by the evidence. Rest is good, even if your sleep is maybe not what you hope it would be. But some other things you can do. You can make your tasks smaller. So we talk a lot in my world about kind of breaking, like, let's say a marketing project, a writing project into Legos. So there's kind of two ways to look at the world. You can look at the world in a Lego way, where everything is made up of little pieces that can be combined and recombined. You can also look at it in IKEA way, where you're getting, let's say, a business in a box, a franchise, everything is laid out for you. And if you're missing one of the screws, you're really screwed, right? I like to look at things in a Lego way. I like to think about what are the smallest little Legos I can make this task into. If I'm still resisting it, I'm going to make it smaller. Putting together small things with focus. And we're going to talk a lot more about sustainable focus, but make that task smaller so you can get a tiny bit of momentum and let that carry you forward. We're so hard on ourselves. So that which leads directly to self-compassion, making a regular practice of giving yourself credit for the things you're doing. A lot of us are exhausted and we don't give ourselves any credit for the family members who we're taking care of, the stress and anxiety of, extended family, possibly aging parents, siblings, you know, we don't give ourselves credit for all the things that we do. And then we get to the end of the day and we say, I'm a slug because I didn't do anything. You did a lot of things. You just didn't work on your goals because you had so many other things on your plate. So we're going to do a self-compassion exercise today. I'll show you exactly what that looks like. And then really think about, is there a way to make it more efficient? Is there a way to do this? Am I overcomplicating things? Because we creative folks, we are overcomplicators. It is what we do. Uh, Renee, I feel like Sonia's living in my head. Yeah, it's because we're a big tribe, Renee, and we all kind of do this. Um, so, is there somebody else who you could put this? Could you move this from your to-do list to somebody else's to-do list? Um, are there other people, can you do trades? There's a lot of ways we can maybe simplify it a little bit and do a good enough version. So I'm glad you guys are resonating with this. All right, so that's exhaustion. Exhaustion is just, it's a thing that we're all having to manage, and so it's worthwhile thinking about managing it. The second one is distraction, and this is, we're almost all facing it, and this has a little bit more concrete strategies for how to actually, wrestle the sucker. So this is the news, your social platforms, um, your sense of outrage is a big one if you're me, um, and just phone games and like phone stuff. And uh, now a certain amount of like watching your Netflix shows is a good part of life. Entertainment is good. Entertainment is important. Entertainment has always been important. But it does kind of need to be managed because we live in this distraction fire hose. We live in a more distracting environment than probably any other humans have ever had to deal with. So really think about um, addressing it and managing it kind of proactively. So all of the digital stuff, get yourself a good app or maybe even a couple of apps to manage those distractions. And there's a lot of them out there. Freedom is a good one where you can set yourself up like specific times when you're going to be able to get on Threads or you're going to be able to get on Twitter. Um, you can set up specific times when you can watch YouTube. So use the technology to beat the technology. Timers are great. Really setting really solid time boundaries and just, okay, this is my YouTube time. Now here's what's important about that. Let's say like by 4 o'clock, I'm really not in good shape to do any more writing or really honestly client calls, anything that involves a lot of mental energy, but I can watch something. So that tends to be my good time to, for example, watch some of my programs that I subscribe to, like my professional programs, my email marketing lessons, my copy hackers lessons. Um, but also that's a good time for me to watch YouTube and just like have my hobby. If you have It's important to have timers around your work time, but I also actually think it's very important to have timers around your self care time, your hobby time, your family time. You're just, play your phone game. Maybe you get to play your phone game every day maybe that's your 420, where at 420, you play your phone game until 5 o'clock. That's fine. But really think about blocking out time and then using timers to get to it. And please honor your goofing around time as much as you honor your getting down to business time. It's actually really important, especially because we are almost all at this point creative people. Our creative mind is really important to doing what we do. And the creative mind needs a certain amount of just screwing around, whether it's playing solitaire or taking a walk or playing a phone, something repetitive and not too knitting, love knitting, um, something repetitive and not too brain intensive to let your creative brain work on things. And then I'm a real big fan. We're going to talk about this a lot of gentle accountability. So there's toxic accountability. There's, boot camp. Uh, there's certain coaches who are really into, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to heap emotional abuse on you because you didn't complete your to-do list. Um, I don't love that. And I don't think that there's a lot of people who benefit from that. But there is a gentle accountability where you declare an intention. You let people know, the feedback you need. I have one client who shall remain nameless, but she's here, who once in a while she wants me to kind of be a little like disappointed in her for not getting something done. It works really well. She gets it done. But I only do that on request. Um, but you understanding yourself and what you need, just setting the intention with somebody you respect, and then also making regular time to circle back and say it got done or it didn't get done. If it didn't, what's coming up? Let's figure it out. So accountability really is a good thing, and it doesn't need to be shame, and it doesn't need to be, brutal at all. We all have our different ways that we need to be coached and held accountable. And then fear, and this is not a big surprise, right? When we have something on our to-do list, our priority list, we know we wanted to do it, we made space for it, and then we didn't do it. Fear is a big one. And the things we're afraid of, it's very useful to figure out, I'm having a block on this. What am I afraid is going to happen if I work on this? So, a very big one, if you're trying something new, is I'm afraid I'm going to put a whole lot of time into this thing and then it's not going to work anyway. And that leads very directly to what you're really afraid of there, I think, is feeling disappointed. Like you work so hard and then it doesn't go and you feel so disappointed, and it's such a bad feeling. Generally, with fear, we're afraid of very, very painful feelings. The other one is feeling socially awkward. You don't do outreach, for example, to find more clients because it just socially, it feels so cringe and so uncomfortable, and you're not quite sure how to work through that. Um, Learned helplessness is a really big one for us. I've tried 20 things, and none of them worked. It's never going to work. I'm just not good at this, and I'm not going to. And so then you get to the point, and you're like, I'm just not going to try because what's the point? These are all very common, and I will tell you, one of the weird things about being me is I know a lot of people who look really good from the outside, like they have the super big audiences and they have, books, and they're very impressive, and they all go through, not all, but all the ones I know who I'm friends with, they all go through this. They all go through these insecurities and, um, you know, feeling like, there's no point in even launching this project because it's not going to go anyway. And these things are really, really important. I think the folks who do well, they hit on the right thing, so they get that encouragement, dopamine hit, and B, they generally have really good social networks. So when they feel like a dumpster full of flaming trash, they have people they can go to help them move on through it. Because it does pass if you let it pass and you give yourself the structures. So how we move through some of these fears, borrow somebody else's confidence. So that's around having your own Jedi council of people who can encourage you and support you and remind you that you're actually really very smart and very, very capable. Um, Again, general accountability. So this often is paired with breaking the task down a little bit. So if it's general accountability, I'm going to finish my book this week, and I still have 200 pages to write on my book. That's maybe not a great idea because you're not going to do it and then you're going to escape your general accountability. But maybe it's, I'm going to look over what I've written and brainstorm some topics for the next chapter. That could be a more reasonable task. And this is the worst one, but there's no getting away from it. The best way to address fear on your to-do list, the thing you're not doing because there's some kind of iceberg lurking fears, is to do it, which sucks. I know, but there's no confidence like the confidence that comes from starting to make a little bit of progress. And again, the key to that is make it very small. If you do a little bit of the damn thing, if you just nibble one corner off the thing, you will get a confidence hit that will help you keep moving. So then it becomes all about how can I just get myself that tiny bit of momentum that I can start to roll it up. All right, so I'm going to talk about tools for failure. I'm going to talk about things people do this time of year that um, can backfire for a lot of people. Now, if any of these actually works really well for you, then you know you, and you're going to keep doing what works well for you. But these are things that do not work well for an awful lot of people. The first one is an all or nothing kind of approach. This is known in the dieting world as the what the hell effect. So this is, okay, it's January 1st. I'm not going to eat any sugar in 2024. I'm not going to eat any. I'm not going to let one molecule of sugar pass my lips, which, by the way, biologically, probably somewhat impossible because sugar is a molecule and, stuff has sugar in it. But then what happens is around January 8th or 9th, you eat a cupcake. And the what the hell effect is, well, screw it. If I eat a cupcake, then it's all pointless. And now I'm going to eat 12 more cupcakes and I'm going to wash them down with 16 donuts and a liter of Coke. So when you're super all or nothing, almost everything we do has an effect called the rebound binge, where when you restrict it so much, you make it like hyper desirable. And then a lot of times, if you slip up the tiniest amount, you're just going to go a little bit crazy. Um, the thing that created that was the all or nothing mentality. If you can have more of a let's like slide into this mentality, then you will generally, for most things, do better. Another one is toxic positivity. Just, like no bad, like I'm not going to have any bad thoughts. I'm not going to allow any bad thoughts. I'm not going to allow any negativity. Well, negativity is part of life. Negativity has never not been part of life. So, yeah, we have to come up with structures to actually look at the negative stuff, address the negative stuff, make a plan for it, mitigate it as much as we can, and move forward. Abusive accountability we talked about. That's um, you know, that is the coach at the gym who just belittles and abuses you for not doing enough reps or missing a day. Not okay. Not okay. Um, and then obviously, like what these things lead to, what these unhelpful strategies lead to, is first of all, you avoid it. You just don't look at it because, it's very uncomfortable to look at it. So instead of going to the gym and like taking a 1 minute walk on the treadmill and then going home, you don't go to the gym at all. It's just too, it's like, it's awful to go there. And the reason it's awful to go there is shame. When we set a goal, when we set something and we say, I am going to do this, this is my values, I'm going to do it, it's important to me, I did all the stuff, I did all the exercises, and then you don't do it, you feel shame because you have probably acted kind of out of alignment with your values. Um, and that's a tricky place to be in because then you start creating avoidance spots and you start sort of having whole areas of your life that you've decided you don't want to look at because it hurts too much. So, yeah, so, avoiding these very rigid, very doctrinaire, very shame-based tools that a lot of people still use for setting goals, I would recommend not using these because they have so much potential to backfire on you. Unless there's something like maybe you do really well with the coach who's like a tough love coach. If you know that about yourself, that's cool. You do what you need to do. All right, now let's talk about the more fun thing, which is tools for success. So a couple of just very practical tools. Remember we talked at the beginning, I really love practical stuff. Um, Co-working turns out to be really, really useful, especially for tasks that you tend to put off because they are kind of low, like a low emotional reward, like writing your newsletter is a really big one. Invoicing your clients is a really big one. Doing follow up on people you might want to work with. So co-working, physical co-working or virtual co-working really help There's something called body doubling where when we're kind of around somebody else, we just feel more motivation to do the thing. It's just part of our wiring as sociable primates. Um, so having someone else there with you will work to help you kind of get to work and do it. And in 2020, October 2020, I started a virtual co-working community, and that actually works. I mean, it works surprisingly well. And for somebody like me, who's I'm kind of pretty uptight about COVID, and like I have a little physical co-working space that I can go to and I get mail there, but they're really sloppy about masking and stuff. So I don't go there to co-work. I just go there to, that's like my address. Surprisingly useful. Yeah. And it's one of those things where you think that just sounds kind of weird. I don't know. It doesn't sound like all that good, but it's surprising how how useful it is to have a time and a place and some other people who will be there to get your stuff done. The general accountability. So expressing your intentions to somebody who respects you and who you respect, and just putting it out there, declaring your intentions, and then deciding how you want them to, what you want them to do with the data, whether you did it or you didn't do it. What do you want them to, how can they help you um, move forward? If you do it or if you don't do it. Yeah, and reduces loneliness. And loneliness is like, that just loneliness creates a very particular kind of anxiety and kind of trauma that's very unhelpful. And so making it smaller, we talked about that. Taking that giant task, how could you just break a little piece off of the corner of it and do that? And then use that and then break another little piece off the corner. Um, we we oftentimes the stuff on our to-do list is way bigger. The old, from Getting Things Done, written by David Allen, his idea was, can you do this in 20 minutes or less? That's what he calls the next action. That's a pretty good benchmark. And if the 20-minute one is still getting put off, then make it a 10-minute or a 5-minute or a 1 minute. And then measuring your progress. Get yourself a tracker. Get yourself a sticker chart. Get yourself a way that you can really look at. So good book. There's a good book. I'm going to drop it in the class notes. It's called Elastic Habits. And he talks about, that's literally like you make yourself a sticker chart. And he has a very good way of kind of breaking it down. I think it's very implementable. I think it's very doable. Somebody will remind me who wrote Elastic Habits, but I recommend his book a lot. And then some other kind of, I think, important watchwords or frameworks for actually doing the things you want to do. One is focus on doing fewer things at a higher level if you can, but focus on doing fewer things rather than hustle. You can throw an infinite amount of hours at whatever this thing is that you want to get done, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do it well. So think about doing, Stephen, guys, thank you. Think about doing fewer things, but really trying to bring your attention, your whole self to them as much as you can. And when you catch somebody when you catch somebody like yourself shaming you for being lazy, it's not about hustle. It's not about grinding out 50 or 60 hours a week. It's really about, a lot of times, take a moment, think about what is actually important. How can I take this task and then break off a little corner of it and then do that? So really think about focus more than thinking about hustle. And then this is a big one. This came up in our co-working community one time and it really resonated. When you do meditation, okay, when you learn to do meditation, people who don't meditate think that meditation is like, okay, you just sit there and you empty your mind, and then when the timer goes off, you get up and stop. And And that's not what meditation is at all. Meditation is a practice of coming back to the present moment. This is Buddhist meditation. There are different kinds of meditation. Coming back to the present moment, and then if you use something to focus on, like a mantra or something, then you come back to that. But the practice is to keep coming back to say, oh, I went off track there. I'm going to come back. And you might do that in a 10-minute meditation session. Sometimes it feels like you do that 10,000 times, but that's the practice. The practice is noticing you're off track and then start coming back and taking one more step. That is the practice. And so that is the practice that we try to cultivate in terms of, working on our priorities and working on stuff that doesn't come easy. Okay, now we're going to get a little bit more practical and we're going to be doing stuff. So that was kind of a lot of theory stuff. So grab hold of something to write with, and we're going to do an exercise. I do this with the community every week on Thursdays. So it's a self-gratitude practice, and we're going to spend a few minutes. Yeah, Patrick, thank you. Meditation and part of that more rest part. Yeah, meditation is a good way to rest if you're having trouble with other kinds of rest. So grab something to write with. We're going to do a little bit of free writing, and we're going to reflect on things we have already done and things we could give ourselves credit for. And again, we do this every week in the community because it's a chance to get grounded and reflect and remember, like, what was this week even about? Why didn't I get this important thing done on my list? Oh yeah, there were all these other things. Okay. So if you are ready, and you can use anything to write with, you can use your phone, you can use, your laptop, or I like kind of a notebook and paper, but it doesn't matter. Anything at all will be great. So what did you get done in this past year? And I'm going to give you just 2 minutes to really free write what got done. Personal, professional, all the things. So 2 minutes, start now. I'll mute myself so I'm not distracting you. Got 1 more minute. And include all of it. Health stuff, emotional stuff, friendship stuff, family stuff, all of it. All right. Hold on. You may find that you want to even add some more things to this list, which is great. You can do that. But now I want to talk about the things, maybe you didn't get them done, but you did make progress. So, maybe you didn't write your book, but maybe you got a lot of progress made on the book. Anybody else having a problem with sound? while we keep rolling. Okay, good. Just want to make sure my mic is not off. All right. So double check your audio settings. And I'll also pop things into the chat. Okay. So second thing, we'll just do this one for a minute. What did you make progress on? So, the book that was partially completed, the website that has some pages are looking pretty good. The new service you want to build has, you've made progress on it. So sketch those out. I'll give you one more minute on those. Right. I think a lot of us, I'm definitely in this camp. I have that tendency to get 95% finished on 10 different things, or 70% finished on 10 different things. It's good to have an inventory of those because you may be able to pick one or two and just get them over the finish line. Now I want to give you a little bit of a brag. What are you good at? So no one is going to see this, so you can be honest, but just like if you were just to secretly to yourself, what are you actually really good at? Let's do that for a minute. And this again can be professional or personal. Right. Is responsibility a skill or a curse? Yes. The answer is yes, Renee. It's both. Taking responsibility is a really, really amazing one, actually. And I would love for 2024, before we do the next exercise in this, please normalize saying out loud in a firm tone of voice, I'm really good at writing email sequences. I'm really good coach. It's hard to say some things like I'm a really good parent because that always feels like hubris, and the bad things will happen. But you can say I take being a parent really seriously, and I really try not to to half-ass it. I'm really good at taking responsibility. Normalize saying your superpowers out loud. And it might feel very cringe at first, or this might be something you're already good at. But if it's not something you already do, write it down until writing it down doesn't make you sweat, and then start writing it down on social media, and then start saying it out loud. And then, is there anything that you've put a lot of work into? It's possible this may very well be an overlap of what you're really good at. It's also possible that there might be something like maybe you feel like, um, well, I'm not, I can't even feel like I'm good at writing sales pages yet because there's so many people who are so good at it, but I've put a lot of work into getting as good as I can. So where have you put the work in? Where have you, started to make a real dent in that 10,000 hours? So let's do one more minute on that. All right. This reminds me, we're talking about baking because we've got all these baking slides. So the guy who won the British Bake Off a few years ago, the Italian guy Giuseppe, he wrote a really interesting article or gave an interview about he has a lot of sort of imposter syndrome. He has a lot of, I can't possibly be good at things. And so he talks about, he won the Bake Off partly because he would bake everything he was going to bake on Bake Off like 4 or 5 times. Like he put I won't say he put more practice in than anybody because a lot of people do put good practice in, but he really, really practiced and practiced and practiced because he didn't feel confident. And he kind of he sort of credits that like not feeling confident to something that has helped him get more hours in and do better. And I know he's like, Giuseppe is great. Love, who doesn't love Giuseppe from Bake Off? He's so good. So sometimes you're not willing to say I'm good at this. Like for example, with weightlifting, I don't like to say I'm strong, but I have put a ton of work into lifting heavy things off the ground, and it's actually pretty respectable. I'm just so aware of like, well, compared to Olympic lifters, my deadlift is not very impressive, and it's we tend to do that when we get really into things. We're very aware of what it is to be world class, and we know that's not us. We have to acknowledge that when we put this much work in, we're way ahead of almost everybody, and that not everybody's going to be in the Olympics. But that doesn't mean we're not excellent. All right, now we're going to do some kind of lightning ones. Yeah, Renee, this is really important to me to think beyond professional accomplishments, especially this has always been a real thing for me, but especially now in the age of the robot, right? AI is doing so much work where we're going to be able to claim a place for ourselves in the workplace and professional lives and beyond is by leaning into the human stuff, our passions and our relationships and our and even in a lot of ways in our imperfections. All right, so this is going to be a little more lightning round, but I want you to brainstorm some times last year when you were kind. I just want you to reflect back, and this could be kind to anybody, an animal, a person, a checker at the grocery store, anybody, but just reflect on a time last year when you showed kindness to someone. could be to yourself if that's what was really needed. And this one will be a little shorter. All right, and feel free to flesh these out more when we wrap up. I want you to now think about a time last year when you worked hard, when you really did put the work in. You know, you worked on a writing project. Again, could be building your house or helping your kid with math homework or taking care of, a family member who was ill or going through a tough time. So think about a time last year when you worked hard. This can totally dovetail with the kindness one. And then finally, I want you to think about something that not everybody has these, but a lot of us do. We have something that we feel like, well, I shouldn't get a credit for that. So let's say you were taking care of a family member who was ill. And a lot of people will say, like, let's say, we're just like, you got your kid to school every day and who's usually on time. And people will say, well, what am I supposed to get a cookie for that? I'm just supposed to do that. I shouldn't get credit. I shouldn't have to get credit for showing up to work. Shouldn't have to get, you know, I shouldn't expect credit for doing my job. I shouldn't expect credit for parenting my kid. I shouldn't expect to get credit for taking care of my aging parents. So I want you to think about, are there things that you don't feel like you should get credit for? And I want you to write them down. And I want you to give yourself credit for them. Because you know what? Not everybody does it. Not everybody takes care of their family members. Not everybody is a good friend. Not everybody shows up to work. Right. Some of my folks who work with me more might have fewer of these because I'm big on giving ourselves credit for all of it. Okay. And then I mentioned we do this in our community every week on Thursdays. It doesn't take long. You saw, it takes a few minutes. But really, if you can try and make time, a lot of times we'll make time to set our to-do list for the week, Mondays. We do that as well in the community. Set the priorities, figure out what we're going to do. And then we spend a lot of time kicking ourselves around for not getting it done. That's like practically a hobby. But what we don't do is set aside time to reflect on the things we actually got done and on what was taking our time and attention this week. And some weeks you're all in on work, some weeks you're all in on your taxes, some weeks you're all in on a family member who's having a trouble, or you're all in on you get sick. So it varies, week to week. But really taking that time to check in and say, here's where my time and attention went this week. And in the spirit of giving yourself credit for what you're doing. We don't do like, what did you do last year, every week, of course, because that would be weird. Okay. So I'm big on breaks. I'm big on renewal and rest. So let's just pause for about 5 minutes and get up, stretch your legs, grab if you've got, whatever based on your time zone, a coffee, a tea, a beer, whatever you need. When we come back, we're going to start actually working on that 2024 plan, just taking some goals, whittling them down, breaking them into milestones, all that good stuff. All right, a little cold coffee. I'm going to make another cup of tea. So I'll see y'all in 5. All right, welcome back. We're now going to actually go through the exercise of making a plan for our new year. We call this a 2024 planning party. I do these quarterly. The first part of the year one is usually a little longer. So you are always welcome to come back and join us quarterly to just check in on these, because a year is a long time in the 21st century. So feel free to use this planning. You can use it for 2024 if you like, or you can just use it for the first quarter. Just say, this is what I'm intending to work on January, February, March, is perhaps the more productive way. All right, grab something to write with. Again, it doesn't matter if it's your laptop, a phone, a notebook, scratch paper. It really 100% does not matter. Just use whatever's comfortable. Yeah, 90-day view. Before we start, there's a brilliant thing I saw Amy Posner talk about, and this is kind of similar to like the 12-week year, which is a, productivity framework that some people do. So Amy Posner, really, really great copywriter. She's on LinkedIn. You should go follow her there, Posner. And she was talking about, okay, well, think about your goal for 2024. What's your big goal? Let's say get more clients. And then think about what's your big goal for 2025. Maybe it's write a book. In 2026, maybe it's launch a course. In 2027 is, scale to $1 million. So think about that. Since this is Amy's process, I'm going to not make it part of our official process, but it's good to just sketch it out if this appeals to you. And then her recommendation is, okay, take that 2024 goal and really, really try and work the hell out of it the first quarter of the year. And then if you can make that happen the first quarter of the year, take the 2025 goal and work the hell on that for the second quarter of the year. So if you're ambitious and you want to make big progress, I thought that was actually a pretty cool framework. Thinking about a yearly goal, but then compress it down into something that could get accomplished in a quarter. All right, grab something to write with. Okay, we're going to brainstorm. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. It's going to feel like forever, but spend 2 minutes just writing down, what do you want? And this is a time when I would say don't hold back on it. Just anything you want. If you want to be 2 feet taller, put that on the list. Just what do you want for yourself, personally, professionally, health, realistic, not realistic. Let's spend 2 minutes, just dump it all down there. We'll get realistic later, but for right now, I just want you to, if it's to be a billionaire, put it on the list. Go ahead and go. About 30 more seconds. Good. Okay, so hopefully now you've got a big bunch of pages about all kinds of different things you'd like to have more of or do differently. So looking those over, are there three that are standing out? Are there three that you'd like to work on? Again, focus, not hustle, right? Doing fewer things, but putting more love and attention into them. Are there three you'd like to focus on for, let's say, the next 3 months, next 90 days, the next 12 weeks? And again, they do not all have to be professional, or they could all be professional. Things go in seasons. And if you don't have one on there for like some kind of a self-care or happiness goal, then go ahead and have four. So you can either have three priorities plus one that's more focused on self-care, or you can have two priorities and then the third one is self-care and happiness. But make sure that's your well-being as a person is on that list somewhere in a way that feels like taking care of yourself and not being mean to yourself. All right. Drop a yes in the chat if you've got a list of four. And these are just the four for right now. You can always change them out. Yeah, well, yeah, a lot of most of all of our wants are out of our control in magical thinking, and that's okay. All right, good. And if you absolutely can't come up with three, just do 1 plus 1 plus 1. That's great too. If you only want to focus on your business, and then take a nice walk every day, that's great. Okay, we're going to take these priorities that we've selected and we're going to start to break them down. Now, what I would suggest is pick one, and it doesn't have to be the most important one, but pick one. We'll go through the exercise and then you'll have the exercise and you'll complete it afterwards. Because we would honestly, literally probably be here for 2 more hours if you went through the entire process for all 3 or 4. And we will have the Google Doc with, the process on it. So just work through the process for one, maybe sketch out some notes for the others if they come to you, and then you can complete it on your own time. So accomplishment, states, and habits is the first step. So taking one of your priorities, let's say you have a priority to get more clients in 2024. When you have when you have reached that priority, what will that look like? What will you have accomplished? I have a client roster of 20 excellent clients. So that's like the sort of very concrete, it's an accomplishment. It's something somebody else could see. It's externally visible. So what is the accomplishment that you would pair with that goal or priority? What habit would be associated with that priority? If your priority is I want to get more clients, then a habit is I do outreach every week on Mondays and Tuesdays, and I do follow-up every week on Wednesdays and Thursdays. That would be a habit that you would have. I checked into I check LinkedIn every day. I write my newsletter every week. So there will be habits that will be associated with focusing on that priority. What do those habits look like? And start with one, but if there's a couple, write a couple, because some of these things do have a couple of habits. If your priority is to move more, then a habit is I go for a walk every day, potentially. And then the third little prong of this three-legged stool is what is the state, the emotional state that would be associated with making real progress on that priority. So if I have a lot of client roster, then I feel very relaxed and confident about my business because I know I've got a nice long list. I've got a good enough list of regular clients who love my work. If it's more of a physical movement goal, the state can be just like, I feel, energetic and healthy and well. So this is accomplishment habit state. The accomplishment gives you like a milestone to work toward. Like I can see, I'm in San Francisco, I want to go to New York. I have defined the endpoints there. So I know where I'm going. The habit is, what am I going to do consistently to get going in the right direction, eventually to get to where I want to go? And then the state is emotionally, what's the payoff for me? On an emotional level, why bother? Why put the work in? What do I get out of it in terms of how I feel every day when I walk around and live my human life? So thinking about this priority, what are the good things that happen when you make the time and the effort and deal with the exhaustion, deal with the distractions, deal with the fears? What do you get out of it? Feeling confident, feeling potential, and also the external things. If I have a good client list, I can take a really nice vacation this summer. If I have a good client list, I could take December off next year. So what internally and externally, what good things happen when you make meaningful progress on this priority? What does it feel like? What does it look like? More money in the bank? Don't be afraid to include some things like, being a little more prestigious, having a little more status. It's funny because a lot of times principled people absolutely do not want to think about status as a motivator for themselves, but it's pretty hardwired in us as a hierarchical social species. And it doesn't mean you're trying to make anybody else less, but feeling confident and feeling like you're kind of a big deal, that's a motivator. And if it's a motivator for you, you don't have to tell everybody about it, but you should certainly tell yourself about it and let that be part of what motivates you. I would feel like a big deal is a good thing that can happen when you work on this priority. All right. So looking at this, again, we'll just take one for now. If you have them, a little, if you just know it and then you can look at the others, that's fine too. I talked about San Francisco to New York. If your goal is New York, where are you today with respect to that goal? If your goal is, I want to have a client list of 20 really, really good clients, how many do you have today? 0? 1? Do you have 20 clients, but they're all bad? They're mean and they don't pay well and they're not pleasant to work with? So what does it look like today? This can be kind of a bummer. It's usually a little bit upsetting. So try and be, self-compassionate. It's also sometimes you're very close, but that last step is just a real doozy. Here's where the baby steps come in. We're going to talk about those baby steps. Okay, so just clarity. Now this is something, this is actually a technique you can use when nothing else is working on like sticking with your goals, is just think about, okay, I wanted to get to 20 good clients this year. Right now I have 8 terrible clients and 0 good clients. That's where I am today. What's my next, what would the next thing be for me to do? It's called the pivotal technique. And that's kind of a good, when you're in free fall and you're just like, I don't even know what to do. That's kind of a good one to get yourself oriented. And maybe you're in free fall, but you know which way to lean. But we're going to get a little more useful than that today. And again, the status of that priority. So if my goal is to have 20 good clients, the accomplishment, the reality, the external objective reality is, I have 1 good client and 6 or 7 kind of garbage clients. My habit is I don't ever log into LinkedIn. I don't do follow up because it feels embarrassing. And I don't do outreach either because that also feels embarrassing. So those are the habits I have today. And then my state is I'm just anxious all the time trying to figure out where my next gig is going to come from. And it's hard to sometimes do these without, getting mad at ourselves and being cruel in the way we talk to ourselves. But as much as you can, just try to see it and, do your deep breathing and get grounded. It's one of the reasons we start with the self-compassion. If you don't have good habits in this today, I'm not surprised, right? Of course you don't have good habits today. You haven't implemented good habits yet. That's fine. You just haven't done it yet. It's okay. All right. So yeah, Mike says that's a good, interesting point. There's a difference between goals that can be reached incrementally, get more clients. You can get, from 12 to 13, from 13 to 14, or they're all or nothing big goals like getting from San Francisco to New York. Because it doesn't count if you're 3/4 of the way there. Like if you're in Amish country, you're not in New York. And that's where a lot of us get, right? So it is good to know that. Do I get an incremental payoff or do I only get the payoff when I cross the finish line? That is a good thing to be aware of because different things do work differently. Most things you'll get an incremental payoff. But even if it's an all or nothing thing, even if it is literally, I want to go to New York, and right now I am in San Francisco. What's your first milestone on the way? If you want to get 20 great clients this year and you have 1 good client now, then your first milestone is to get 1 more good client, right? Or the first milestone might be, very commonly might be, to spend some time and really get honest with yourself about what does a good client mean to you? What makes a good client for you? So that would be an example of a first milestone. So if you're going from San Francisco to New York, and let's say you're going by bicycle, your first milestone is like, I don't know, maybe Sacramento if you're really a hell of a bicyclist, right? How far could you go in a day? How far could you go in a week? Right, let's say we're going to drive. We're not going to go by bicycle. Your first milestone is maybe Reno. San Francisco to Reno. On your road trip to New York, if you start by getting on a plane to Hawaii, you're not doing it right, right? You're going the wrong way. Hawaii is great, but Hawaii is not where you were going. So what's your first milestone? What's the first kind of point on the path? And then thinking about that first milestone, what's the first step that moves you in that milestone? So the first step in driving from San Francisco to New York might be getting your tires checked, um, doing a little, take your car into the mechanic, make sure everything's sound, pack a lunch, get some gas in the car. What's the first step? This is, we talked about David Allen's next actions. What's the next action that moves you in the right direction? It doesn't have to get you all the way there. Yeah, choosing experiments for consistent outreach is a great one. I'll tell you the first step for a lot of us in our realm is that course you bought last year. Like putting some time in the calendar to watch the lessons or rewatch them if you sort of watched them but you kind of forgot them, or do the worksheets. If you took a little like online class on getting clients, then the first thing to do is, okay, I'm gonna rewatch that really good session on getting clients, or I'm gonna reread Ed Gandia's excellent book on warm email prospecting. Always recommend that if people need more clients. Or I'm going to um, give myself 20 minutes to actually like make my LinkedIn profile not embarrassing. Ed Gandia. Folks I work with more regularly know I talk about Ed all the time because I just think he's very smart about this. He's also on LinkedIn. You can follow him there. Yeah, design some experiments. There's a lot of first things, and you might have quite a few first steps that are coming to mind right now. Just write them down. So give yourself some moments. If you know you want to read that book and you want to polish up your LinkedIn profile and you want to um, decide which day of the week would be good to do outreach. Yeah, so Renee has an interesting one. Schedule finishing the great how-to book I started 3 months ago that stays half read because I do everything else first. I don't know what the book is, but could you pick it up on audio? Could you just get it as an audio book and then you can do it when you're doing something else? Or maybe does that writer have a YouTube channel? Maybe you could watch some YouTube instead. Or you could take their little $50 course because it's in a format that's easier. Yeah, Ed's great. And Ed's not the only one who's great. I mean, there's plenty of people who are great, but he's somebody I recommend a lot just because I feel like his advice is very clear and easy to implement. And he's also always struck me as a solid human. Okay, so now we're looking at our priority. We've got a milestone. We've sort of like, here's a step along the way. We have some ideas about what am I going to do next to actually move there. Now just take a look. Do you have what you need to implement this goal? Do you have the materials? Do you have the tools? Is there something you need to know? Is there a digital tool that would make this work better? Do you need like a little squad of business besties that you can talk to so that you get the encouragement you need? Do you need to get yourself a co-working space because what's on your list is I'm going to publish my newsletter absolutely reliably, and a co-working is a really good way to put that on the calendar and then show up and do it. So do you have what you need to actually do it? Is there anything missing? Think about, is there something you could add? Something tangible, something digital, something personal, something in your relationships? Is there something you can make or add that's going to make this work better for you? Another way to think about this is what gets in the way? Is it distractions? Is it exhaustion? Is it fear? Is it, I mean, there's just certain kinds of people we live with, they don't have boundaries. Small children, sometimes aging parents, they're going to interrupt you. So what's getting in your way? What might be missing? What could you somehow get that would put gas in the tank for this road trip? And thinking about this, now that you've started to break it down, is this really the right milestone? Is that maybe too much? So if your goal is to get 20 great clients and your next milestone is to get the first next great client, maybe an early milestone is to compile for yourself a little process for getting clients. Okay, I'm going to research somebody on LinkedIn. I'm going to send them a note. I'm going to do that 10 times on Monday. And then here's what I'm going to say when they email me back. Do you need so sometimes you're not going to be able to get all the way to Reno. Sometimes you're going to have to stop. What's between San Francisco and Reno? Elko, maybe? Sometimes you need an earlier milestone because your resources maybe are limited. You have other demands. You have a day job. You have a demanding health situation. You have a family situation. Way back in the day with the authority community, we had sort of an issue because we had a lot of folks who had small children and or aging parents, and sometimes both, and day jobs, and maybe not great health. And so they would talk about like, well, I didn't get a lot done this week because I have all these things that are happening. And there were just two gentlemen, one of whom is very well known now, the other one is somewhat less so, who were like, that's just an excuse. You just need to like stop making excuses and just implement. And we kind of let these gentlemen know that there's a big difference between an excuse and a reason. We all have constraints and we all have assets. If you have a real constraint, if you have little kids at home and aging parents at home, or if you have a health situation, that's going to be a constraint. And you are not going to be able to move as fast as somebody who doesn't have that constraint. And that's just how it is. And so we move slowly. It's okay. If you need to walk because the car won't work, we walk. We keep moving forward with support, with kind accountability, and with self-compassion. Maybe we decide to hang out in Reno for a while, and that's okay. All right, and then we work milestone to milestone. So it's great to have the end in mind. It's great to know, my son, he's 18 years old. What his New York is New York. He wants to live in New York City. But, is he going to live in New York City this year? Not likely, right? It's expensive to live in New York City. So he's got to build that. So his next milestone is, getting steady employment and what he wants to do and moving in with some friends so he can build the skills of living on his own in a supportive environment. Great milestone. Love that. So we work milestone to milestone. You keep most of your focus, 90% of your focus on your next milestone, but you kind of know the map. You kind of know that after I do that, I think the next one is probably this, and then I think probably I'm going to do that. It's great to sketch it out so you have the larger picture, but most of your focus goes to the next milestone. So it's very possible that you can do it all. Some people do. It is very possible you can do it all, but you're probably not going to do it all this week. And something that I find I do a lot is I want to move everything forward at once. but that's not how you move everything forward in a meaningful way. See if you can get a project. If you've got those projects that are 70% finished, 80% finished, get something over the finish line that's going to move you toward the milestone. Get it crossed off, do a giant self-compassion happy dance, and then say, all right, that was awesome. Get some celebration, get your accountability group to give you some love, and then say, that was awesome. That feels good. Let's do the next milestone. All right. Yeah, Heidi, that's a great one. Before we, we'll talk about that for a moment, but grab a fresh sheet of paper, because what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this scribbling and notes and random thoughts and all these little insights, and we're going to try and come up with a path for one milestone. But Heidi says, when I think about personal accomplishments, the big one doesn't end in a milestone, it's more of a state of being. And yeah, I think that's, I think that we interpret that for ourselves. It could potentially be, so we've got our accomplishment, our habit, and our state. So the state is your mile, the state is what your priority. My state is, I want to feel like confident and secure, right? You might be able to translate that into some externals. Actually, okay, relationships, for example, that's really good. There's a question, it's called the miracle question. So let's say you're in a relationship with somebody and it's very rocky, right? Like there's a lot of conflict. The miracle question is, what would it look like if I went to sleep at night and overnight a miracle happened and this relationship was more what I wanted it to be? What would that look like? And there's some interesting reasons why that works. But so thinking about, let's say your sister, you fight with your sister all the time, right? Well, the accomplishment might be, I rarely fight with my sister anymore. We don't raise our voices anymore. Or I had a conversation with my sister and she really listened to what I had to say, and I listened to what she had to say, and we were able to express some more warmth than we have been expressing before. So think about if there is a way, what would there be an external sign that you could know, like, hey, you know what, this is actually kind of happening. And you can do that with, confidence. You can do that with you can do that with a lot of things. And you don't necessarily have to get there, but just know what it would look like. What would it look like? What would a win look like? So that way you're looking at it internally and also externally, because most of the things we work on are a combination. That's true, that you don't get there and stay there, you keep working on it. And that's where the habits come in. But that's true for almost anything. I mean, you don't get 20 great clients and then it's like, great, I've got 20 great clients. Living the life of Riley. You have to keep working on finding, keep bringing new clients in, because some clients are going to go. So that's actually a great insight. We don't get there and stay there normally. We do have to keep working on almost all of it. All right. Yeah, good. Yeah, listen listen again, and also we'll go through the Google Doc. That'll be a day or two. But we'll get that published with the replay, so you can just go make a copy for yourself and then just work on these whenever you want to. And again, we do revisit these quarterly. So, all right. So fresh sheet of paper. What are your 3/4 priorities for 2023? Or for what I would recommend the next 90 days? Where you're going to put your focus over the next 90 days. And then give yourself some space on this page. So if you're working on paper, like just leave some physical room and just write the words accomplishments, habits, states. So you won't maybe do them all right now, but the one we just thought through, write out for one, the accomplishment is I have 20 great clients and I'm having to manage a wait list because I have more great clients who want to work with me than I have hours in my day. My habit is, my LinkedIn habit. I do outreach on Mondays and Tuesdays. I reach out to at least 10 new people and I follow up with at least 10 people a week. And then my state is I feel financially confident and secure. I feel really confident in my skills. I love my client work. I feel good about the time I spend working. Okay, so just translate that to the one and then we'll flesh out the rest later. Write down, if you know it, the first milestone for each of those priorities. If you haven't quite worked that out yet for your other ones, just write your first milestone for the one we worked on. Where's your focus? Where's your next focus? Any first steps that you have already kind of identified toward any of the milestones that you're writing down? I know my first step is going to pick up Ed's book or whatever it is. And then get those steps onto your calendar. When are you actually going to do them? And this can be like a weekly routine. Monday is my getting organized and outreach day or whatever it is. Wednesday's my newsletter day. Or it can just really be like, it's just one step. I'm going to do it and then it's going to be done and I'm going to put that in the calendar. And then I really advise you to do this process quarterly. Feel free to come do it with me. I do them live right around the solstice generally. And take that time to relook at, what do I want? Of the things I want, which ones are the priorities to work on for now? And then what are my milestones? What are the next steps that lead me towards that milestone? Is anything missing? So that whole process. And then put it on the calendar. All right. So y'all are looking good. We are going to have time for questions at the end. I'm going to talk to you for like 2 or 3 minutes about this. If one of the things on your priority list or a priority list is my website is embarrassing me and I can't really do the next thing I want to do professionally because my website, I don't feel good about it. I don't want to send people there because it makes me cringe. I lead a program. It's called the Content Flagship. Now, this is about the words on your website. If your issue is like you hate how it looks or it's got old tech and you don't think it's like fast or good, let me know because I have some folks that I hang out with who do a great job on that. But if the words on your website just don't reflect who you are right now, or that you don't feel like that you're making yourself look very good, or you don't even know what's supposed to be on there, the Content Flagship is a program that I lead that will help you just get it crossed off. You can have it done by mid-February pretty easily. So it's what's called Done With You, where we meet as a group, but there's a lot of hand-holding and a lot of kind of one-on-one availability with me to make that work. We offer, first of all, a structure, what's even supposed to be on the website. I am going to be doing a free workshop on that. What should even be on there? What are the pages that I need to have on my website to just have it be functional? You've got support, you've got structure, and you have that general accountability of getting it actually done. You also have access to my community. So I mentioned a couple of times my implementation community, my co-working community. We meet a couple of times a week. It's a really good place to get your newsletter written. It's a really good place to get your website copy written. Program also includes personalized feedback. So I personally, even though I'm not one of the two people in this picture, look at the pages on your site and give you some, like, this is really great. You might want to think about rearranging this a little bit. I think it might work a little better that way. And then live free writing sessions. We have 6 live workshops to just get it written. So you get your about page just written with free writing. You'll get your services page written with free writing, and then you can go back and polish it. Implementation co-working and check-ins. That's Toral, my partner in co-working. And you just have a framework for getting that website copy done. So it's done. It's a milestone. It's off your list. You feel good about it. We have 6 live workshops. We have the live free writing exercises, personalized critique, weekly priority setting. Every Monday we meet to set priorities for the week. Every Thursday we meet to do a little self-compassion, check on the week. Is there something that didn't get done? Let's figure out why. And co-working to do your work. So, and yes, as Toral says, it's so much easier to get clients when your website is not embarrassing you. I can't tell you how many copywriters I know who are embarrassed about the copy on their website. It's like a totally normal thing because we get caught up in client work and we just don't make time to do it. All right, so the next cohort is going to start probably January 18th. Everybody here got here from a link that I emailed you, so you will get the information about it. But yes, thank you, Mike. Mike's been through the flagship. Joe's been through the flagship. Sarah's been through the flagship. Toral's been through the flagship. It's a really, really good, solid program. We will get your website to where you feel really amazing about it. So checklist, returning to our 2024 planning. Again, this will be in the Google Doc. Thank you, Sarah. So your checklist for making this 2024 plan, or even better, your Q1 plan, set 3 priorities for the year or for the quarter. Expand those to your accomplishments, your habits, and your states associated with that priority. Define the next milestone. Figure out what are the first steps that are going to move me toward those milestones. Attach specific times and specific dates to those steps. And then keep your focus on the next mile marker. Don't think too much about the one that's 3,000 miles away. Think about the one that's 100 miles away and crossing that distance. And then revisit that quarterly because life changes. Thank you. All right, so Happy New Year. We do have time for questions if anybody has any questions about anything. And for those folks who have been in the flagship before, I always give like a very significant discount because some people do like to take it multiple times. And we do have some people who are going to be taking it for the second and sometimes the third time this time around. All right, let me switch to my question slide. Yeah, Mike, go for it.
Yeah, Sonia, I find one of the biggest problems. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. I'm going to turn on the video panel. So anybody who doesn't want to be on video, turn your camera off. Yeah, go for it.
I find one of the hardest things is recognizing that what you want to teach people is stuff that they really don't know.
Yeah.
It's things like, oh, Jules, I mean, everybody knows that. So I'm going to put out a lead magnet and everybody's going to say, well, we knew that. And
right.
I'm not quite sure what you call that. It's some kind of imposter syndrome or something. But whatever it is, I find myself doing a lot of research thinking, I've really got to make this good. And people say, well, nobody knows that. What you're telling them is that's what they need to hear. Mm-hmm. It's sort of the curse of being an expert or something.
Yes, it is. It's the curse of knowledge. It is the curse of knowledge. So for those of us who are like promoting something like a course or service or something along those lines, um, part of the work is to figure out what people think they need and what they want. And then you have to kind of build a bridge between what they think they need and what they actually need. Because usually they don't know, you know. A lot of times people are maybe a little overconfident about some parts of the process. They're harder than they think they are. And different people are good at different things, of course. Um, you know, there are certain things like, for example, positioning is one of those that it's tricky and it takes time and it needs to be revised all the time. But most people are sort of like they either don't 100% know what it is, so they're kind of like, whatever, can't be that important, or they think they've got it and they kind of don't got it. So a few people really have positioning dialed, but most of us, you know, it needs a little work. Richard, thank you so much. Glad to see you. So yeah, I think, you know, that's probably an action step or a project on your list is to do some research. One of the best ways is just to schedule some free calls and just talk to people and just find out like, well, what do you think is holding you back from doing the thing you want to do? What do you think the problem is? And sometimes it does happen that what they think the problem is not really what the problem is, but you have to meet them where they are. There is not another option. You can't require them to learn the thing you know they need. You can only entice them to learn the thing they want to learn and then put the vitamins in as part of it. And it happens, it happens a lot. All right, anybody else have anything coming up? Yeah, thank you, Joe. Joe says the Content Flagship program takes you through the fundamentals of what makes web pages work. You gain a deep insight of how to write effective pages and posts, and then most importantly, you learn how to become a better writer. Yeah, thank you. And you have that structure in place so that it actually happens, which makes it work well. All right. Anybody else have a question about any of it? About the flagship? About your process? Oh, okay. This is a good one, Cynthia. How do we know we're spending too much time on getting ready steps? That is a great question. I think the easy answer is, you know, you're never going to be ready. Just do it. Just take the leap. But I think sometimes that's a facile answer. I think sometimes that's not, you know, the question is almost more, are you spending time on the right getting ready steps? So are you, for example, doing 20 times more research than you need to do, but maybe there's like you're doing that because there's a hard part you would rather not do. And I think, you know, getting that peer group, talking with an empathetic coach, you know, a lot of times other people. Yeah, thank you, Patrick's like ding, 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 ding. Yeah, yeah. So I think sometimes you need to borrow. There's an expression in the consulting world that a consultant borrows your watch to tell you what time it is. And this is used to like make fun of consultants, but actually, in fact, if you're having trouble reading your own watch, lending it to somebody else to read it for you is one of the smartest things you can do. So yeah, get someone else who's like a supportive person and not just a person who likes to rip people to shreds, you know, to look at you and say, is it possible we've done enough research here and maybe what could we do to move to the next step? Ooh, I love it. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, the same question, when is enough research enough? And it depends on your project. I mean, if you're doing a PhD thesis, then you probably need a lot of research. I was listening to a podcast about, and she mentioned this historical novel, and this writer did 8 years of research on this slightly obscure English late medieval noblewoman. I'm gonna guess she could have written a really good novel with 1 year of research, So yeah, I mean, you can over research, and that's where I think it can be very useful to do this quarterly, and to just say, okay, I'm still researching what gets me realistically to the next milestone. Most things, there is a this is good enough. Understanding, actually, we talk about that. Well, we talk about that in my writing group. Having a standard for yourself of how good is good enough for this project. Does it need to be does it need to be like in the Olympics level excellent? Could it just be very good? What level does this need to be to make it serve the value for the people I'm serving? Who are you serving? How much do they need? That can be another really good question, power question.
One of the big challenges for research is you often you're researching and getting a lot of detail, but until you start to narrow it down, you're not quite sure which bits of the detail you're going to need.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you always sort of do need to do more research than you're ever going to use. The other thing that can be really helpful about the research question is just to state in an objective way, here's the amount of research I've done. That does not mean I know this whole topic, because this topic is large and complicated. So if you're okay, I have a client who's a registered dietitian. She's done X amount of research. She's familiar with the scientific research on these topics. Could there be more research she doesn't know? Yes. And she will tell you, no one can consume all the research. Here's the research I have consumed. That's why I'm sharing this approach with you. But this is a large and complex topic, and it's always possible we're going to discover new things later that might change how I think about it. Cool. Renee has Annie Duke's Quit helps to understand when to quit an activity that isn't leading toward your goals. That sounds good. We will have another free workshop coming on that minimum viable website. What does a website need to have in place to be good? It's actually very pertinent to Patrick's question. You could have a website that had 800 pages, but what are the 5 pages you need to have to get it launched? And then you can add to that with content or whatever else as makes sense. Knowing your, how much is good enough to be very good, is always a great question. So we will have that coming up. I think it's on the 10th. It's in one of those emails I sent you. And yeah, that'll be a lot of fun and cool and interesting. Good. Well, you all are brilliant. Thank you so much. I loved your questions and your responses and your thought and your engagement. I can tell you're really into this. I want to wish everybody like so much good things and good momentum for the new year. It has been a hard one for a lot of us. There's just been so many things going on that have been hard. But I believe in you. I think you've got this, and I can't wait to talk to you soon. Take care, all. Thank you. Brilliant.